President Tinubu warns that despite 5 decades of progress, ECOWAS still faces grave security challenges. He's urging regional leaders to adopt a unified approach to tackling these threats, expressing concern over delays in activating the force. Well, Tinubu says he is a little bit worried about the slow pace of its activation, which is taking longer than desired. Arise correspondent Nariman Benjamin reports.
The 67th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government has ended in Abuja, Nigeria. The summit draws 8 regional presidents, ministers, diplomats and key stakeholders from across West Africa. As President Bola Tinubu's 2-year tenure as ECOWAS chair comes to an end, he's calling for stronger and faster security interventions across the sub-region, especially in tackling terrorism and instability.
We must act decisively to operationalize the ECOWAS standby force on the fight against terrorism to serve as an instrument for peace and stability for our region. I am pleased to note that under my stewardship as the chair of authority, the ECOWAS military logistic depot in Lungui, Sierra Leone, has been completed.
In his acceptance speech, newly elected ECOWAS chairman and president of Sierra Leone, Julius Bayo, laid out 4 key priorities for his administration.
We are still confronting insecurity in the Sahel and coastal states. Terrorism, political instability, illicit arms flow, and transnational organized crimes continue to test the resilience of our nations and the effectiveness of our institutions. First, restoring constitutional order and deepening democracy. We must engage transitional governments constructively and support member states in building stronger democratic institutions rooted in the rule of law. Second, revitalizing regional security cooperation. We must overhaul our collective security architecture. Third, unlocking economic integration. The ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, regional infrastructure, and cross-border value chains must become engines of job. Building institutional credibility. ECOWAS must reform itself and become more transparent, efficient, and responsive.
At the end of the session, ECOWAS leadership reaffirmed its commitment to deploying the standby force despite ongoing financial constraints affecting the bloc.
The threat we are facing cannot be handled by one country alone. This is why joint efforts are important. And this is why the President is saying that we need to act fast on the ECOWAS standby force.
Julius Bayo is now the new head of the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government. He's coming at a time where the region is urgently in need of action on insecurity, unemployment, economic challenges, and a host of other challenges bedeviling the region. Citizens will only hope that his tenure will bring about unity, peace, hope for all citizens. Punariman Benjamin, Arise News.
All right, Arise correspondent Bunariman Benjamin, who just had there, has been following proceedings at the regional body in the last 2 days. She joins me now for more on the change of baton in ECOWAS. Glad to have you join me, Bunariman.
Thank you for having me.
I was going to say, Puna. All right. Well, Tinubu has just taken a bow as the chair of ECOWAS. What would you say are his imprints as he leaves ECOWAS in terms of achievements?
Okay, to start with, ECOWAS had a very long week. Started with the Ministerial Council meeting, and then the ministers meeting, the 54th Ministerial Council meeting, and then the 65th ministers meeting. Now, after this, the icing on the cake was the West Africa Economic Summit, which was held in Nigeria. And 3 presidents within the ECOWAS region were in attendance. It was a high-level meeting, and it just shows that ECOWAS is ready to rebuild its economy. Of course, we know that most of the ECOWAS member states are struggling economically.
Okay.
And it's actually President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's brainchild. So this will count as one of the legacies that he's going to leave behind. And that is if the Sierra Leonean president decides to continue with this trend, so that at the end of the day, ECOWAS will have a very robust economy that will be pleasing and acceptable by all citizens within the region. And one of the things I would say Tinubu has achieved is the fact that he was able to pay off Nigeria's community levy in full. And this is the first time we're seeing that. And it was something that was well appreciated, especially by ECOWAS, because ECOWAS has been struggling financially. And most of the countries, the member states, don't pay their community levies. And of course, how will you run without finances? So this was just a leadership by example that was exhibited by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. By doing that, it just shows that all others should follow suit. They should do the same thing. So these things are part of the things that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has achieved, even though he mentioned today that he has completed the military logistic camp in Lungi, Sierra Leone. So, and we know that insecurity has been a very big challenge in the region. So with that, it just shows that the region is ready to see how they can tackle insecurity, even though it is said by the Minister of Defense, Nigerian Minister of Defense, that $2.6 billion is needed to reactivate ECOWAS standby force. And as of today, the ECOWAS president is still saying that they are looking for funds to reactivate the standby force.
Bio, are you talking about Bio now?
No, the ECOWAS president.
Oh, ECOWAS president,
Yes.
okay. Well,
Aliu Toure.
all right, before I get back to Julius Bio, who of course was taking over as the ECOWAS chair, you can't talk about his tenure without talking about the 3 countries left within his tenure. And there was talk that the way that ECOWAS, with him as head, handled that issue was not quite diplomatic. You want to talk about that and then talk about how resources are going to be managed with the Sahel countries that have left, and then human resources.
I know that these 3 countries left during President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's tenure, and it was a big blow for him. He wasn't expecting it, seeing 3 countries leaving almost at the same time. And the militaries are taking over in the region, which is really saddened. Democracy is what we all want to embrace. And of course, there were experts criticize his first move when he sanctioned these countries heavily, taking the electricity and some other things. And that really made experts to feel that he should have done better. He should have used diplomacy instead of going very hard. But I would say he tried to change things by setting up committees to go and discuss with them and see how they could convince them back to the region, even though that never worked. Rather, they were being emboldened. Now their alliance, they are now a bigger body that is fighting the ECOWAS.
All right, before I let you go, Julius Bio is now the chair. What should ECOWAS be expecting?
Expectations are very high. People really want to see action. They want to see changes economically, security-wise. Now, he has highlighted 4 priority areas. the effects of climate change, economy reforms. He also wants to see how he can improve trade within the region. Infrastructure is a big challenge, especially when it comes to trade within the region. Because when you don't have electricity, when the roads are bad, when it takes you a longer time to move from one country to the other, it will really be a big barrier for trade. So he has mentioned some of these things as key priority areas that he is going to ensure that it works out to improve the lives of citizens within the ECOWAS region. But we can only hope that he keeps to his words and do what he needs to do. Because I know that the citizens within the ECOWAS region are anxiously waiting to see what he's going to do, his reforms, and how he's going to translate into a better life that they have always been clamoring for.
All right. Thank you so much, Panariman Benjamin, a correspondent there covering the ECOWAS meeting.